Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Some will come in a little bit late, but that's okay. I'm recording the session, so I will post that probably in the office, and that will be available later to anyone who wants to review what we covered tonight. So I wanted to welcome everybody to the class. You've worked real hard getting to this point, and we certainly appreciate that hard work. So this is the capstone project for the course, and we're hoping that it'll be a very good experience for everybody. And the purpose of this class is to finish up what you started in SPD 695. So in that course, you went through the nuts and bolts of designing a research project. And so for the next 8 weeks, then you'll be putting the pieces together and developing a plan so that you can do research on your own with your own class. We don't expect you to do this hands-on research in your class in this course, because generally speaking, a research project will last anywhere from a year to 3 years. And I don't think you want to wait that long to get your diploma. So what we do is to help you to get set up so that you'll be able to do that. And hopefully you'll let us know if you do that. We're always excited to know what the students are doing and what they're accomplishing. So hopefully you'll keep that in mind. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Now let's see if there was anything. Okay, it looks like one chat here. Okay, good. All right. My sound was not turned up earlier, and that's why I couldn't hear. That's why I always ask the question to begin with. Make sure that I'm set up the right way. All right, so is everybody able to see my screen there? Okay, good. All right, so basically this is part 2 of the syllabus. As you noticed, there are 3 parts to the syllabus. The first part of the syllabus just basically describes the course, the CLOs, some of the things that will be expected of you, and some contact information. So I'm always available by email. Emergencies, I can be contacted through the phone, but just please keep in mind that I am in Florida, and so there's a 3-hour difference in time zones. So if you call me, say, for example, right now it's about 10:03 at night here where I'm at. So if you were to say be busy at midnight your time and you wanted to call me to ask me a question, that'd be about 3 o'clock in the morning for me. And pretty good chance I wouldn't answer the phone. So just keep that in mind. And the same thing would be true if I tried to call you in the morning to answer a question or to ask you a question, and it were, say, 6 o'clock in the morning my time, it would be 3 o'clock in the morning your time. So we'll just respect each other on those times. Email is good because you can send email at any time, and then I can respond to it as soon as I see it. Okay, so week by week schedule here. You're going to see all of this information week by week in the Blackboard syllabus. This is just a written syllabus to help you along the way. I strongly suggest that you download all 3 parts of the syllabus. And that way you'll have everything that you need so that when you're doing your assignments, you'll be able to refer back to them for any specific instructions. So the capstone project, it's a research proposal where each of you will design a research project to match the group of students that you're working with at the current time. Now, most of the time, you're pretty steady in your class assignments. Most schools don't bounce the teachers around too much. Some do, especially now with all the problems that COVID-19 is pushing out there. You might not have the same assignment each year, but for the most part, it's going to be very similar. So you already should be working with a group of students. You probably have some ideas that you would like to implement, some kind of an intervention that you would like to do to make it easier for your students to accomplish some learning goals. So remember from your 695 that the intervention is always what? Do you remember? The intervention that you use in your classroom is considered to be what? Which variable is that?
The independent?
Yes, that's the independent. Independent, very good. And then what you're trying to change would be called the
that would be the dependent.
Yes, that's correct. That would be the dependent. This can get kind of confusing. Now, I'm also teaching right now a session of 695, and I'm noticing that some of the students are getting the two turned around. And it can get confusing, especially since in some of the research articles that you read in 695, some of the authors were confused as to what the independent variables were and the dependent, and also the control variables. So don't feel bad if you're struggling with that part of it. You almost have to just write down some notes to yourself and post it somewhere where when you're working with your papers so that you don't forget what those things are. All right, so the intervention should be developed in a way where you can measure the results. So if you cannot measure what you're doing, it's going to be very difficult to tell if you actually had success or not. Without the measurement, you kind of just scratch your head and say, well, I think I was successful, but you have no way of proving it. So you always want to make sure that that you're able to determine those measurements. It's somewhat like writing an IEP for your students. You want it to be a measurable goal for the student. Otherwise, when you have a discussion with the parents and with administration at school as to whether the goals were accomplished or not, if you can't show the measurement, they're not going to know whether there was any improvement or not. So everything needs to be set up so that you can measure. So in some types of measurements, how would you go about doing the measurement? Can you give me an example?
Data sheets or student work samples.
Okay, all right, very good. I like that approach, data, because without the data, you really can't tell anything, right? But what kind of data would you use in order to show whether there was actual growth or not? What would have to be included in that data?
Would we use percentages in graph responses to the collective of the data? I don't know if I'm clearly understanding what you're asking.
Okay, all right, that's fair enough. When we talk about data or data, sometimes it can get confusing. In many cases, you would start off with a pretest. So you would test your students on something that you want to teach them. You want to improve their skills at something. So you would give them a pretest.
Baseline.
Yeah, so that gives you your baseline, right? So it tells you, okay, what do your students know right now? Okay, so you already know what you want them to know, but what do they actually know? Now you have concrete data because you've tested them. Now you apply the intervention. Now what do you do so that you can actually make that measurement?
Would that be like introducing a rubric per se to grade the actual data itself and keep it accountable?
Okay, that's good. Okay, good points there. I would suggest doing a post-test, which would be the exact same test as the pre-test, and then measure your correct responses. So that's not the only way that you can do it. It's just one of many ways that you can do it. And it's definitely a way of proving whether there was growth or not. Okay, so charts come in really handy. They're very graphic. They can show you your baseline, what the student was able to do before the intervention was applied and what they were able to do after the intervention was applied. And that's where many times the graphs come in. They're very much able to show whether there was growth or not. And it's interesting because some students will show growth, other students won't show any growth, and some students will actually go backwards. But without that data, you don't really know what's going on. So those are just some of the things that you have to plan for in your research. Okay. Another thing that's very important is making sure that you can reproduce your experiment, so to speak. Okay, you need to give enough information so that somebody else can take a look at your proposal and say, okay, I wonder if I can make this thing work. So if you have enough details as to how the research was performed, see, then you can replicate it and you can see if you came up with the same results or if your results were different. Okay, then if you find that there's a difference in the results, then you might at that point decide, well, I'm going to tweak this a little bit and see if I can get more improvement out of it. So you can go back to your intervention and look at it and say, okay, what can I do to modify this intervention and get better results? So that's the experimental part. And that's the part that gets pretty exciting because then you start learning a lot of things about methods of teaching. And we call it an art for a very good reason, because you have to develop it. So if you're doing the, excuse me, if you're doing the same thing always without any variation, you're pretty much going to get the same results. As teachers, we grow over the years of teaching. We learn more and more things about our teaching. And after a few years, we're much better teachers, hopefully, than we were when we first started. And you keep progressing over a period of time. So in some ways, each year that you continue teaching, you've been doing some of this experimentation on a very informal basis. So what we're suggesting in the last course and this course is that you can actually make it a professional assessment. This really pushes you forward in your art of teaching. Okay. So hopefully you'll take good notes, keep the information that you learned from the course. Don't throw it away, because it'll come in handy. You'll notice that as time goes on, you'll start looking at your students with a little bit different eye, and you'll start thinking ahead of time as you're learning about your student. Okay, what can I do to help this student? You'll notice that many of the experiments, many of the tests that are performed on individual students, or 1 or 2 or 3 students at a time. There's a reason for that. Okay, you don't want something always that's going to fit everything possible, because it's not going to work. If you concentrate on a few students who really, really, really need help, then you can develop ways so that you can figure out, okay, I know I've worked with students like this before. I can modify my teaching to this particular student and really be a help to that student to be able to progress. So it's a learning process, and it's something that's very enjoyable. It can be frustrating at times, but for the most part, it's very enjoyable. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, you want to download and save the 3 parts of the syllabus. And you want to put that on your computer. You can print it out. You can have it in written form in front of you, so that when you're going through your assignments, you can accomplish them and get the most points. And so you're going to be answering prompts and instructions under each section of each chapter. And then in those prompts or templates, then you can actually erase the instructions after you've answered those questions, so that you just have a comprehensive paper without all the questions on it. Okay, with each new submission, you'll continue building on your capstone project. So after the first chapter will be graded and feedback is received, the candidate will incorporate the feedback and continue writing chapter 2, and then submit 1 and 2 together. So I'm going to modify this part right here. I thought I'd already changed this, but I didn't. Okay, what I would like you to do is to take into account the feedback from each paper. And if I point out some errors, then please correct the errors, correct it in that paper, and have that ready so that when you do turn in the capstone, all the chapters together, then it's already corrected. So please do not just take that paper and just save it and then just put the chapters together at the end. They need to be corrected. Okay, it's important that the features be correct. All right, then you've got each chapter, and I will I'll leave feedback for you. And please keep in mind that feedback does not automatically infer that points are lost. Okay, I don't want you thinking that. If points are missing because of issues in the paper, I will let you know what that is. But if I give you a comment, like for example, on the first paper, you have some minor problems and their minor grammar errors. I will point those out to you, but that does not mean that I'm taking points off for that feedback. So hopefully you understand that. Sometimes students get scared. They see the feedback and automatically they're seeing points flying away from the paper. That's not the case. Okay, when you work with your own students in your classroom, you always give feedback to your students, but that doesn't mean that you're downgrading them. It just means that you're giving them some counsel so they don't repeat those same errors. All right, and then in the final analysis, the final paper that you turn in will be in one document. And that way you don't have to make a major number of changes in your papers at the very end. Just keep up with those changes as you see the comments. And if you don't understand something, a message that I left, please let me know. I'll explain it to you, okay? All right, so keep in mind that the readings, the research articles, the assignments, they focused on best practices for assessing, teaching, and evaluating. Okay, so we grade on a rubric. There is a rubric for each assignment. Okay, if you can't find the rubric, let me know. But I can guarantee you that there's a rubric for each assignment. Okay, so the rubric will help you to see how the grading process is. So if you're missing a few points on a certain issue, go and take a look at the rubric and see if you can find out why points were removed. Okay, you need to take the time to produce a high quality written paper. So please don't just throw things together. Okay, I don't do do-overs unless I ask you to. If you have such a big problem with your paper that I cannot give you a decent grade, then I will ask you if you would like to redo the paper. Okay, but if they're just minor things, then I'm not going to sweat those little details. You may lose some points, but there won't be a need for rewriting the paper. Okay, please do not ask me to read your paper in advance before you submit it. I've got too many students. There's only one of me. There's many of you. And if I read all the papers ahead of time, we won't get through the course. Okay, it says here to get a reading buddy. Okay, a reading buddy is somebody who can help you. They can read your work in progress. They can give you some proofreading feedback, but they may be able to ask you questions. For example, they may ask you, okay, what are you trying to say here? I didn't quite understand this. And that way, that's kind of a clue to you that maybe you can go back and rewrite a paragraph or two to make the information more clear. Okay, it's very conceivable, it's very possible that when you are writing, you know in your head what you're writing, you know it, but for some reason it's not getting down on the paper completely. And for that reason, what looks good to you may be missing some important details that would make it clear to the person who's reading your paper. Okay, so it's a good idea to try to form pairs or groups, maybe of 3, so that you can check each other's work before it's submitted for grading. Okay, it's not mandatory that you do that, but it's a very strong suggestion. We find that those who do those little groups, they significantly improve their grades. Okay, and yeah. Yeah, that way, if there's something that's incomplete or confusing, I give you an example of something that might be confusing. In education, we use a lot of acronyms. And if we're in a school program where certain acronyms are used all the time, we know what those acronyms mean. But maybe in a different school district, they don't use those acronyms, those same acronyms. So if I were from that other district and I would look at the paper and say, well, what do these acronyms mean? See? And then if you go on the internet and try to find those acronyms, sometimes a particular acronym can have 5 or 6 or 7 different meanings. So what I suggest is that if you're going to use an acronym, put the words down that the acronym represents. And then next to that word, put parentheses and put your acronym. That way, if you're reading along the paper and you come across that acronym again, you say, okay, what was that acronym again? Then you can just go back and find that in the paper. Oh, okay, now I understand this. Okay, it's not good if you have a paper and you've probably seen some articles that you've been researching. You've probably seen some of them where they use so many acronyms, they don't explain what they are. You don't have a clue what they are. So it makes the reading not very good. Okay, so that's what I recommend there. All right, so the actual course schedule now is coming up. For week 1, you have some readings there. Okay, and then you have your lecture in Blackboard. We're doing the collaborate session right now. Okay, so you need to by now know what your RQ or your research question is. Okay, and now would be a good time to figure out some reading buddies and exchange emails. So you, at this moment, if you want to chat a little bit, send little chat messages and get some email addresses, you're welcome to do that. Okay, you have your first discussion, which is worth 5 points, and it's explained here. You want a definition and your own explanation of what is research or action research. Okay, provide a quote from a published work. Use quotation marks for the actual quotation. Then provide your own working definition adapted from the quote that you just gave, or a longer explanation of what is understanding the action research. So focus on that for that particular assignment. Now, you were asked in your 695 class to come up with a capstone research question. If you want to change that research question, just let me know. I'm not against that. In doing research, I find that, well, in my own classrooms where I worked with kids where they were developing their own research questions, they would many times come across an idea that they hadn't thought about before, but it really piqued their interest and they wanted to change their question. That's a natural result of research. You start off wanting to know about one thing, and by the time you get finished, you're looking at something totally different. But just keep in mind the time constraints. So you don't have much opportunity to change that research question many times. I would say if you want to change it once, then let me know. Now, the problem with that might be that it might invalidate all of your articles or some of your articles. So if you do change your research question, please change it just enough so that you can still use the vast majority of research that you've already done. it would be terrible to think that you're going to throw away 8 weeks of research. But sometimes we run out of information. We have to change a little bit. But just remember, try to change it only enough so that you can accomplish your goal and get your research done. Okay, and then you'll have your chapter 1. You'll have a checklist. Each one of the chapters has a checklist. So, and they're actually giving you points for those check marks. Okay, so you have to make sure that those definitions are in there, what it is that you're doing. Now this one here, you probably recognize this from your 695. Okay, your capstone research question follows one of these formats and includes the highlighted variables. Okay, so how effective is this method of teaching, which is the independent variable? In teaching X number of students with Y-type disabilities in or of elementary or high school, for example, 5th grade, 10 to 14 years of age, you decide what you're going to put in there. And then 2, the behavior skill that needs to be taught, which is the dependent variable. Okay, other possible formats, how effective is the independent variable in teaching, and you tell me how many that you're teaching students with, okay, Y type of disabilities, or X, it might be a combination of things, in, and then your group of students to the dependent variable. Okay, so they're color coded here to try to help you. I don't know if any of you have used what's called the close method of teaching sentence structure in the lower grades. Okay, it follows that exactly. Okay, so it makes it easy to just plug in the information so that you don't have to spend too much time thinking about it. Okay, the first assignment that you had in 695 was doing the city training for the IRB. So you should already have those documents. You need to submit both the certificate and the transcript. Okay, and then your literature review text along with your appendices. That was for SPD 695. So that was, I believe, your capstone project for week number 8. Okay, so I need those documents. So you can send those in. One of you already sent your documents in this afternoon, so that was great. Thank you. All right, and then for week number 2, you got quite a few points here, 38 points. That will be chapter 1. That's your introduction. Okay, 20 points is going to be for the paper itself. And it's due along with the title page, which is 4 points, an abstract, and your keywords. All right, one thing that I would like you to remember about the abstract is that the abstract is never indented. That's the only part of the paper that will not be indented. Okay. All right, and then your title page, of course, on the title page, one of the features of the title page is your running head. Now you notice that you're no longer using your APA manual edition number 6. It's number 7 now. So if you have 6, it's not going to do you a whole lot of good. There have been some changes. One of the subtle changes is that in the running head, you no longer type the words running head. You simply type your running head, but not the words running head. Okay. Okay, the running head itself needs to be no longer than 50 characters. That includes spaces and punctuation marks. So if your title is quite long, then you're going to need to abbreviate that title page. Okay, next to the title page will be your page number. And that will be sitting out at the right-hand side, the upper right-hand part of the page. And that will be on the same line as your running head. Okay, so if you have any questions about that, just take a look in the index there of your APA manual edition 7. That is a required text for the course. So please make sure that you have one. All right, and then for week number 3, we should have a collaborate session, and then we can go over chapter 3 at that point. And then you're going to have the assignment number 3, which is worth 45 points. Okay, and it's going to be a literature review, and it's also going to need all 12 PDFs. Now, the reason why I'm saying 12 PDFs, you're going to be allowed to use the 8 that you did with SPD 695. However, in your literature review, you need to follow the prompts for each of those items in that literature review. So if you did not complete the literature review the proper way in 695, then you need to correct that for 696. And you don't get those extra points on the PDFs if you leave anything out that should be in there. And there'll be a checkoff list for that. So you'll have the 8 that you used in SPD 695 plus four new ones. And then these 4 new ones, they cannot be older than 10 years. Okay, the 8 from before, they could be older than that, but the 4 new ones, they have to be 10 years or less. And I think we'll go over each of the assignments in just a couple minutes here. All right, then week number 4, we'll have live collaborate session, and we'll go through the discussion. And keep in mind that your discussions, the first post of the discussion is due no later than Thursday at midnight, California time. And then the other 2 reply, they're required by the end of the week. Okay, so post your capstone project hypothesis, materials, equipment, your responses, etc. Okay, then you have a discussion week number 5. And then for week number 6, you'll have another collaborate session, and you'll have chapter 3. Now notice that chapter 3 has 85 points. That's the largest points for any of the assignments in this course. Okay, so you're going to need to follow the instructions. There's several pages of instructions. There's a checkoff list there to make sure that you cover each of the points in there. Your appendices are worth 5 points each. Okay, so just a question that I'm going to throw out there. Where do we put appendices? In APA style, where do we put the appendices?
Is it after the abstract?
A little bit further from there.
After the intro?
Okay, it'll be at the very end of the paper. That will be right after the references. Okay, so that was a good try.
Thank you.
That's good. Some of these things are kind of new to many students because they've never been asked to do these things before, which I think is kind of silly in a way because look at all the number of papers that you've written throughout your career here with National University. And so now finally you're getting some constructive information on how to do the writing and the placement of items. So that's good. And I'll help you along the way. If you make some mistakes along here, I'll give you some coaching. And I do have some documents that I can post or send out on an individual basis if anybody has a question about it. Okay, then discussion number 7. Okay, you're going to follow the directions for that. And then, of course, another live collaborate session. And the final assignment for week number 8, which is worth 25 points. It's the entire capstone project is due. Okay, so that also includes chapter 4, which is 10 points. You have your references, mechanics, update references, abstract, appendices, all of that. It's all due by the last day of the class. Okay, so there's a summary of allocated points here. So you can see that your total number of points is 200. And then you'll have a description of each assignment. Okay, where did that go? All right, so let me see if I can pull up. Pull up that other document. Yeah, the Blackboard tends to shut down if you're not active in Blackboard for a certain period of time. All right. All right, so can you see the paper now that says capstone proposal checklist? Okay, good. All right, so when you take a look here at some of the requirements for the actual processing of the words, first of all, you have to use a Word file to do this. Other forms of other software programs do not work well with Blackboard. So if you try to use something from an Apple product, it probably will not show up here at all. Okay, verb tenses. This is a proposal, so any reference to your study should be future tense. Anything that you discuss in the literature that is showing research already conducted, use the past tense. And it's obvious if you're quoting somebody, anybody, say at your school, you say, well, the teacher so-and-so said such and such 2 days ago. You wouldn't say that that teacher is saying it right now, because it's something that she said in the past. So that's why you have to use the past tense. All right, so APA style, 7th edition. Okay, font size is 12. Use Times New Roman, 1-inch margins, double spacing. Use the levels of heading, etc. You'll have some templates to work with. Please use standard English. So that means that your grammar, punctuation should be correct. There should not be any terminology confusion. Do not use contractions, idioms, or non-standard English. Remember that contractions, the only time you're going to see the contractions in academic writing is when somebody is quoting informal language. Okay, so make sure that if you do use contractions, that you're using it in that sense. It's informal dialogue. So it's almost like cartoons. You're writing cartoons, people talking to each other. Okay, it should be well organized, should be logical. The structure should be correct. So cite correctly. There should be no plagiarism detected. The only place in the paper where you're allowed to quote directly without worrying about plagiarism is when the instructions explicitly tell you to copy and paste. Okay, there's a couple places in the instructions where that's stated. Every place else, you need to make sure that it's cited correctly. Plagiarism does not mean that you quoted somebody word for word. It means that you didn't give the proper attributes. It means that you just used their words and you didn't give your source credit. Keep in mind, please, that what you quote should be sparing. Okay, let's put it in basic terms. Okay, each of you has the ability to write well. Okay, there's no question in my mind about that. You don't need to copy copious amounts of material from other resources and put those in a paper. You are just as qualified to write good writing as your authors are. So don't take that away from yourself. Okay, use your own words wherever possible. Now, when you're citing somebody and you're using somebody else's idea, you're not quoting them word for word. You'll still have an online citation showing where you got that information. But try not to use many direct quotes. Okay, and if you find that you have no choice, then if your quote is, I believe, more than 39 words long, you have to use special formatting. Okay, you're going to do your writing as a scholarly practitioner. That means not first person. So therefore, when you're referring to yourself, then you can say the scholar, the scholarly practitioner, the teacher, the instructor, et cetera, et cetera. There will be a self analysis part, a very small part of the paper, where you're going to talk about the effect that your research has on you as a teacher. In that sense, you can use first person, but the rest of the paper should be third person. Okay, so notice that the title page is worth 4 points. It has to include the running head. We talked about that briefly. Needs the name of the capstone project, the full student's name, the name of the master program, for example, Master of Education and Special Education. Okay, the full name of the professor, and then the month and year of the start of the course. Okay, so instead of saying, you're writing the paper, and instead of saying February 3rd, 2021, you would say February 2021. Okay, abstract. Start at the top of the page. You need to state what the purpose is, the participants, the independent and dependent variables, the experimental design, and the hypothesized results. And remember, okay, do we indent that abstract? No, we do not. All right, limit your abstract to about 125 to 250 words maximum. So say what you need to say, but no fluff, okay? And don't tell the whole story in the abstract, okay? Let the paper do that. Okay, you need 3 to 5 keywords for your capstone project. All right, so chapter 1, then there's a recording of a syllabus part there. If you want to listen to that, that's fine. But here are the instructions. Okay, so when you take a look at the third part of the syllabus there, then keep in mind that you're going to have a checklist. This is almost like your rubric. Okay, so you'll need to have an introductory paragraph. Remember, it's one paragraph. It's an introduction paragraph that sets the stage for the topic. Does not need a heading. You don't have to say introduction. Okay, the rest of the headings do need to be there. Okay, note that in the background of the study, you should have at least 2 citations to support your thoughts. These citations should come only from peer-reviewed journals published within the past 10 years. Then you have the statement of the problem. And if this confuses you a little bit, it refers you back to assignment number 1 of SPD 695. Then you're going to have the purpose of the study. There's 2 bullet points there. Your audience, who's going to benefit from your findings. And this is, we're not looking at the students for the benefit. The students will benefit from the study, but who's going to benefit from the publication of your research? Okay, your students are not going to read your research, somebody else is. So tell us who you think will benefit from reading the results of your research. Okay, the significance of your study. Again, you have those 2 APA citations. Your research question. Again, you've seen this format here, so you can use this format. And then in here it says, be sure to explain how you'll measure the results. Okay, it's very, very important. If we don't know what you're going to use to measure, how will we know whether your project was successful or not? And it gives us a couple of examples. For example, in medical trials, a pretest could be a questionnaire or a medical exam for your beginning measures. and then use the same test for the final measures. For example, test blood sugar regime. You start with a study of a certain blood work prior to the intervention. You describe the intervention, which would be the medicine used, the dosage, the time intervals, etc. Those would need to be clearly stated. And then the final measure would be a blood work sample after the intervention was completed. And then that way you'd be able to tell whether there was improvement or no improvement. All right, the assumption is important because you want other people to be able to replicate your study. If they can replicate your study, then the study will have more meaning. Okay, so it says here, if you can make a paragraph with sentences, or you can list the assumptions in a list. So you have the APA format for a list, and it's basically this one right here. If you look at the index in the APA manual, then you'll see those examples. All right, and then limitations. Okay, there's certain things you cannot control in any study, no matter what. And every year, your classroom dynamics change. There's certain things that you cannot change. Okay, teachers' attitudes towards certain strategies, the educational level of the parents, maybe the students' medications that affect their attention spans, et cetera, et cetera. So you need to know what those limitations are in advance. And sometimes you have to guess at them, okay, because it might not be 100% obvious. All right, then there's some resources there that you can look at that explain further assumptions and limitations. Your definitions of terms. This is where you're going to quote word for word from scholarly books or peer-reviewed journal articles. Okay, use APA style 7th edition. Remember that your citation should include page numbers. If your use of that term needs to be adapted to your research question, then you can provide your own working definition of that term. And do not use the same source for all of your definitions. You may use the same source only for 2 definitions at the most. So I'm instructed here, the instructions to me, the instructor will not count the extra definitions originating from one single source. So if you give me 3 definitions from the same source, I'm only allowed to count 2 of them. Okay, so there's your motivation to use the right number of resources. All right, now important theses and dissertations may not be used in chapter 1. Okay, there has to be a research question. There has to be a population involved. There has to be the variables, the independent variable and the dependent variable stated. If it's a thesis or dissertation, those will not be in there. You may use a meta-analysis and literature reviews to present an overall viewpoint. You may use book chapters to cite from for chapter 1. Don't use a lot of meta-analysis and literature reviews for the simple reason that they have served their usefulness. They're no longer useful. Okay, they report on research that has been done. So they're no longer useful anymore. So you need to find individual articles about research. You're going to put those articles together in a meta-analysis or a literature review. Okay, so that's why you shouldn't use many. You can use 1 or 2, but I wouldn't use more than 1 or 2. Okay, because it's going to destroy your appetite for doing the enhanced research. Okay, chapter 2. Okay, more instructions here. And you see these little check mark or the little check boxes down here. These are the things that we're looking for in those reviews. Okay, and if you don't answer all of these questions, you cannot receive points So if in 695, if you did not answer those questions for whatever reason, then you're going to need to answer them for this course. Okay. All right, so then you have the conclusions of the literature review and then the discussion on the related literature. All right, so when it says to synthesize the information, what do you think that means? Synthesize the information.
Does that maybe mean that you take your hypothesis and kind of prove it through your synthesis?
Okay, that's a good start. Thank you. I know it's kind of scary to volunteer the comment.
Would it be to kind of take all your information and put it into kind of one concise statement or definition, I guess?
Okay, that's very good. And that's part of the definition. Both of you had part of the definition. So very good on that. To synthesize something, not easy to say. Synthesize information means to put it in your own words. Okay. So that's why it said there, do not just paste isolated ideas or summaries. Put it in your own words. That way it means something to you. If all you do is copy and paste, it's not going to mean anything to you. Then you're just wasting your time in the course. You're not learning how this research can help you. Okay. All right, and then you can create new subheadings from 695 if new information from the 4 new articles is changing your viewpoint. So here you're going to take the 8 articles that you used in 695. You're going to make sure that the information has been synthesized. And you're going to use these points here to do that synthesis. Okay, and then you're going to add those 4 articles. And you may find that your headings might change a little bit, and that's okay. If you end up putting one of the articles under one subheading, and now you need to put it under a different subheading, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. So I'd like to see those changes. All right, and let's see. Oh, yeah, it says to explain how each work is similar to or how it varies from the others. In other words, it's a compare and contrast. So include conclusions of literature review and discussion on the literature in the chapter. Okay, so you're building on previous work from the literature review in 695. So please do not just simply take that literature review from 695 and just throw it in here for the literature review, because that will not meet the requirements of this assignment. Okay, now it says for chapter 2, not allowed in this chapter are dissertations, theses, chapters, blogs, or magazine articles. One literature review or meta-analysis accepted, the one that you used in SPD 695. Okay, the 4 newfound articles need to be published in the past 10 years. The remaining ones could be classic as long as they serve your capstone research question. All right, submit all 12 PDFs with your chapter 2. Okay, that means that you download those articles and you will upload them into the upload box for this assignment. Okay, please do not just attach the PDFs one to another and post it that way. It won't do me a bit of good. Okay, do not send URLs of the PDFs. I have to have the actual PDFs. The URLs tend to get corrupted when they leave your computer and go up to Blackboard. Something usually happens to that coding and they don't come out right. And I usually will get a notice of a corrupted file. So please send me the PDFs. That way I don't have to send you an email and ask you to upload those PDFs. And don't upload 12, how can I say this? I don't want you to have 12 or 13 individual uploads. Okay, you know how you can, in each upload, you can upload several documents. So that's what you need to do. You upload your chapter 2 and then all 12 of your PDFs. You upload them into that same box. Okay. All right. All right. I am going to stop here because it's been an hour. And right now it's past 11 o'clock for me here. And my brain is starting to get fuzzy. So next time when we meet, then we'll go over chapter 3 and chapter 4. Are there any questions at this point?
Professor, I did have 2 questions. For the assignments, are they due on Saturday or Sunday evening?
Okay, technically they're due on Saturday. But if you turn them in on Sunday, I will not penalize you.
Okay, perfect. And then also I had a question about the city training. I had noticed that on there. You might have covered that part. If we did the city training in the first class, is that covered or is there a second portion of the city training?
No, you need the 2 documents. You have the transcript and you have the actual certificate. So you need to upload both of those.
Okay, so we're just uploading. It's not a second portion, like another.
No,
Okay, perfect.
you're not going to redo it. If for some reason you didn't do it, then yes, you would have to do it.
I know I completed it.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Because legally you cannot even try to design a research project without going through that city training. And so that's why we have you do that right in the very beginning.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Okay.
Hi.
So, Professor, I just had one question. I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding this. Are we reusing this form and adding to it as we go through? I think I'm confused to how you were stating this kind of a working document that we're building.
Yeah. Okay. The way it's stated, you're supposed to add to that document. But what I'm finding is that I'm having to basically reread chapter 1 each time everybody submits a paper. So that becomes very cumbersome. And it could be very cumbersome for you as well. So what my suggestion is, if you want to put them all together as you're going, that's fine. I'll accept it. If you want to wait until the last week and submit them, that's fine. The only caveat is that if I leave comments for you to correct certain things, please do that right away. Don't wait, because it's going to affect your writing on the next paper. Okay, you'll just simply copy the same mistakes over again, and then that just means extra work for you in the end. So I don't want you to have to do the extra work. So that's why I'm asking you to make those corrections right away. And then that way it's ready to upload. Okay. All right. So did that answer your question?
It does.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Hi, Professor. I had a question.
Yes, go right ahead.
So regarding the discussion post, I just want clarity for myself. So in the discussion post that's due tomorrow, we're just posting about the action research, the definition and what we, in our own words, and also our capstone research question.
Yes, let me see if I can pull that up here real quick.
Because it has like 3 points and I'm just.
Yeah,
I don't know
because
if,
part of your points are the discussion itself, and then also the your comments. Okay, so let's see here. Discussion number 1. All right, can you still see my screen here?
yes, but it's
Okay.
blank.
Oh, it's blank.
I don't see anything on here. Let me see.
Okay, is anybody else having the same problem?
Pages.
Pardon me?
It's on the bottom of page 9 of whatever page that
You
is.
seem to be still in that document we were reading through.
All right, let me let's see here. Okay, did that help?
Yes, I can see
Okay.
the same. Yeah. Mhm.
All right, so it gives you all of your directions are right here. So if you go to the discussion itself, let's see. I think about the only way I can show that to you is when you do your posting, you should be able to see a rubric. Because when I grade a rubric comes up. And
I think if you hit create thread, you might be able to see that rubric on top there. Everything. Is that what we're looking for?
Yeah.
The top there.
Yeah.
So we're also doing the third part that says submit your work on assumptions and limitations for chapter 1 as part of the discussion.
Yes. Whatever is posted there. And unfortunately, every time I move, it, okay, grade. No, that's not it. All right, I apologize. When the assignments are graded, the rubric pops up, and I'm not seeing that right now. So what I'll do tomorrow is I will look for where those rubrics are hidden here and let you know. But part of it is answering the questions for the discussion, and part of it is your responses to at least 2 other people, and there might be a part in there talking about documenting your comments. For example, if you're citing a resource, that you cite it properly and give the online citation. I believe that's what it is.
Because it also says first, the open discussion, what you just talked about, and then it says second, announce your capstone RQ that must follow the format provided. Third, submit your work on assumptions and limitations for chapter 1. So
Yeah.
all those 3 things I do in the post?
Yes. Yes. Now remember that the part there that says second, announce your capstone RQ. Okay, it's in the same format that you used in SPD695. Okay,
So
so you can refer back to that.
the
portion.
paper.
Yeah.
Okay, and then so basically, I'm going to be using the same research question I stated in 695, right?
Yeah, unless you want to change that. If you want to change, then let me know.
And I'm good.
Okay,
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. All right, I apologize for not being able to answer the question completely, but you're on the right track there.
I have a question about our collaborate sessions.
Yes.
Are they all on Wednesday and are they all at 7?
No, most of the time they will be on Monday, but I had another collaborate session this past Monday, so I just didn't have enough energy to do 2 of them in one night.
I can understand that. Okay. Will you correct the calendar that's on the announcement page so we know when those are?
Yes,
I have to plan way ahead because of IEPs and my husband's cancer treatment. So
yeah, I will send out that information as far ahead as I can.
okay.
And there's a possibility that we won't do each collaborate session. Okay, if there's not a need to do it, then I won't do it. But if you're having a lot of questions, then I'm more than happy to do it. Okay, but I will let you know. And remember, those calendars are subject to change. They always are. That's why when you get a calendar from the store, the calendars are blank. They just have the dates on them.
Right. Right. Mine fills up fast.
Yeah, everybody's fills up fast.
Right.
That's the nice thing about a calendar. Then if you use a pencil, then you can make changes without messing up the calendar too much. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay, very good. And what I will do is I will post the video. Take a couple of hours for it to render. I'll convert it to a YouTube, and then I will post it probably in the virtual office. That's usually where I'm putting them. So if you need to go back and look at something, or if for some reason somebody was not able to attend tonight, then they can go back and take a look at it. Okay. Any questions? Feel free, to send me an email. Ask away. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Okay. All right. So with that, I'll bid everybody a good evening. I know you have plenty of things to do, so I'll let you get with it. And thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a
Talk
great
to you
night.
later. All right.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Have a good evening, Professor.
All right. You too. Thank you so much.